Welcome to the Piston Fanatic. I'm your host, Dave Dalton. I'm excited to share my passion and perspective of our Detroit Pistons. I've been a diehard Piston fan since the days of Dave Bing and Bob Lanier. I've also been the varsity basketball coach of a very successful program in northern Michigan. Thank you for listening. Please subscribe. Our luck stinks, Piston fans. Man, how can it be this bad? How can we go 3 years in a row where we get the fifth pick when we had odds to get the first pick? Twice we had the worst record. The other year we had the second worst record, and to get the fifth pick, it is unbelievable. And this year, obviously, it doesn't matter as much as it did in past years, but still, there's a lot of luck involved in the NBA. There's a lot of luck. The Spurs got lucky last year. They got so lucky, and who got to get Wemby. And every year there's a lot of luck. And those other years that we drafted low, we could have gotten Brandon Miller, or we could have gotten Chet Holmgren, if we had just even a little bit of luck, and instead we fall to number 5. And so it is just unbelievable. It just blows me away that we could be that unlucky. So sorry, Piston fans. We just got to make the best of it. There is a lot of, a big variety in who people think are going to go in this draft. I mean, I look at lots of mock drafts, and the between number 1 and 12, there's people that are just interchanged all over the place. There's guys I've seen, on somebody's board that's 4th, and they're 12th on somebody else's board. So we're going to look at some of that. But the Atlanta Hawks, the stinking Hawks, they had 3% chance to get the top pick. 3%, and we had 14% the last 3 years, and we get the 5th pick, and they had 3%. And they had only a 14% to even be in the top 4, and they get the top pick. And the Wizards, they hold on and get they were second worst record, and they got the second pick, and they had 14% to get the top pick, but 52% chance, just like we did. We had a 52% chance. And the Spurs, they had 10% chance, and they moved up, and they get to get a top pick. So yeah, the Spurs are lucky, and so they got to get David Robinson and Tim Duncan, and they just had things fall in place. So everybody talks about what a great organization they are, and they have done good things, and they have, we probably would have blown it, but still, it takes luck. It takes luck to be the one team that picks Nikola Jokic in the second round. Just there's a lot of luck that is involved in the NBA, but yeah. So we got the 5th pick, and we're going to look at some of the players that we might get to pick. We also have the 53rd pick in the second round, which is way down there. But it's been an interesting thing. We're still looking for a president. So the combine starts. And so all these players are going to be starting to be evaluated. Those guys are all in Chicago. You saw some of the players if you watch the lottery show. And so they're going to be, everybody's required. The NBA and the new collective bargaining agreement, they made a rule that every player has to not do everything at the combine, but the measurables and things, they're required to go there and be interviewed and whatever. So it is going to be fascinating. There is a big scope of players. Zachary Richichet is who I wanted the Pistons to get. He will not be there at the number 5 pick. I'm real confident of that. But again, there have been a lot of guys that are rumored. It will be fascinating. The Hawks, they have Clint Capella and Aneke Okongwu that both play the center position, and Alex Sarr's the consensus number 1, probably, if there is a consensus number 1. So what are they going to do? They could trade and get him, but it'll be fascinating to see what they end up doing. I would say that the Wizards will then, if the Hawks take a forward like Richichet, then the Wizards everybody thinks that they're going to want Alex Sarr. So we'll see if that happens. And then the Rockets, who knows what they want? They've got the draft high every year. They've got the high pick. They got the number 3 pick when they got Jabari Smith Jr. And then last year they get lucky and they get Cam Whitmore with the 20th pick, besides getting Amen Thompson. So yeah, there's a lot of luck involved, and you got to be smart too. So we'll see if we can make the smart pick, because all these guys are there. There's going to be some good players. This is the weakest draft. Yeah, I mean, it's a consensus. It's the weakest draft there's been in a long time, and there's no clear-cut top players. So I wasn't expecting us to get. I wasn't going to be as disappointed, but still, it's just a kick in the teeth to get the 5th pick when we had 52% chance to get the top 4. So, um, yeah. So then Nicole Topic, everybody's always rumored him to go to the Spurs, and they have the 4th pick. So I would guess that they're going to pick him. So. And there's a wide variety of guys who could go at 5th pick, and so we can talk about some of those guys. We're going to dig into that later. But if we were going to get a center, and there's Donovan Clingen that's from national champions team, and he can block shots. He's a really good defender. He's a much better defender than Duran, but how can we keep him and Duran both? So it's not that easy. Just Duran's a great player, and he played at a really good year, and he's only 20 years old. But if you thought that Klingon was the guy, then you would take him. But Stefan Castle, 6'7", he's tough, but he can't shoot. So we can't get it. We can't take him. I mean, some people have him. I've heard mocks where he's number 1, but you don't want Stefan Castle. We got Asar Thompson. We can't have Asar Thompson and Jalen Duran and Stefan Castle that all can't shoot. So Matas Buzelis, he's been high on people. He's 6'10", he's a wing, and he can play forward. He can put on some weight, but he has good handles. But he was considered a great shooter coming out of high school, but he was bad shooting with the G League and Ignite, and they had a lot of problems there. And so still some people hold out hope. Rob Dillingham is just a short guard, but he is electric. He can score on anybody. He can pass the ball a little bit. But another guy, though, that a lot of people want is Reed Shepard. And so Reed Shepard is phenomenal, but he is 6'3". And he's not a freak athlete, but he's Mark Price and John Stockton. He's not as athletic as John Stockton, but he made defensive plays all year. He blocked shots, Reed Shepard did. He's a phenomenal shot blocker, but then does that mean we're moving on from Jaden Ivey? So if we draft another guard, we drafted guard after guard. And so the two guys that I'm really interested in, if they're there, and here's the thing. I'm not always right, and I've been wrong about a lot of picks, and I've been right a lot more than I've been wrong about guys. And the problem I don't have is I think in this draft more than other drafts that knowing and going to the combine and seeing the measurables and doing the interviews and then having the individual workouts, I think that's going to be more important than usual this year. So, but there's Dalton Knecht. His first name is my last name, so that's a good thing, maybe. But he's 6'6", he's athletic, and he's a tough competitor, and he can shoot the lights out. He is a bucket, man. He is a bucket, and so you can always use guys that can shoot. So if that was the worst thing that happened to me, I would be happy with him. A fascinating player is Cody Williams, and I thought I had him. I had Richeche 1 and Cody Williams 2 way back in January, and then he got hurt. And he played on Colorado's team, and they had 2 other NBA prospects, high first-round prospects. And so he didn't always get the ball a lot, but then he got injured, and I really started to try to watch every one of their games. So either wasn't playing, or when he played quite passively. They never really looked to get him the ball. He shot close to 40% on threes, but he shot a very, very small number, only when he was like wide open. He's skinny, and he's his brother, Jalen Williams, plays for OKC, is just out of this world. And and here's the thing. I talked about this other episodes that Keegan Murray and Jaden Ivey and Benedict Mathurin and Jalen Williams, when they were freshmen in college, they weren't that good. They would never have gone high. And even Jalen Williams, he was drafted. I don't know if he was drafted, 11th or 14th, somewhere in that area. And he is one of the best players in the league now. And so guys you got to figure out who can get better. So is Cody Williams one of those guys? He's 6'8", and he's skinny, but he's not a freak athlete, but he's a really good athlete. And so, who's to say where his ceiling is going to be? And there's Ron Holland. A lot of people have been skeptical about Ron Holland. He plays his butt off. He's really plays tough and works every possession on defense, but his shooting is questionable. He's not the best passer, and so a lot of people have been more down on him. He was high on draft boards before the season started, and everything went. He played for the G League Ignite, and they weren't good. But here's my sleeper, So Gigi Jackson last year was my sleeper. I said this guy, and I couldn't understand everybody. He reclassified, so he went into college a year early. And so, and he had struggles at South Carolina. He was really bad, and his percentages are bad. He said and did some things that were real questionable about his character. So he gets drafted in the second round by the Grizzlies, and now he is like, he tore it up the last part of the year for the Grizzlies. He had 30-point games. He shot the lights out. He's like 6'10", 6'9", freak athlete, can shoot, can do everything. So here's my guy is Tejan Salon, and so he's my big sleeper, and he's reminds me of Gigi Jackson. 6'10", freak athlete. He can shoot it, 7'4" wingspan, and he would be a big gamble, but I would roll the dice, man. If I don't know. I would have to, again, get all these guys in for workouts, but he is my big sleeper that could really, but here's the thing too. Anybody that we were going to get in this draft is not going to be good immediately, and there's not many guys that could impact. I can't say that. I say Rob Dillingham and not Rob Dillingham, but Reed Shepard and Dalton Knecht. I think they could step right in and be a shooter and space the floor and give you some juice on that way. And so I think that, and Knecht, he's 23 years old already, so he's older than everybody on the Pistons. The core six, he's probably younger than any of them, older than any of them. So, but I think he could step right in and really contribute. But a lot of guys aren't going to contribute right away. So I still think our main area of improvement is we're going to see that's going to make a difference. And I'm excited to see this is to see what Quentin Grimes does. Quentin Grimes didn't do well for us, and then the 16 games that Fontecchio played, he's phenomenal. He's going to have more impact than anybody that we could draft is going to have on our team next year. And I think Grimes could easily be the same thing if his shot goes in, which he shot great for a full season. And then there's our free agent market. We've talked about this, that people that we would take in free agency, and I talked about Najee Marshall, that I love him. He's 26, 6'7", and he shot really well. And some people, one of my listeners commented that, well, he only shot well last year, and that was true. But he was 58 for one out of 150 threes he made last year. But the Pelicans have one of the best shooting coaches. The Pelicans and the OKC have consensus that they have the best shooting coaches, and so there's not an accident that all the Pelican guys have really improved. Herb Jones was a terrible shooter, and he has shot the lights out this year, and he was just a defensive player. So if you can work with a guy on his shot and change it, and it's hard for guys to work on their shot. So anyway, I'm throwing a lot of stuff out there, but I just want to shout out to Tony J. If you're listening, Tony J, thanks for listening. And I don't know if I mentioned this already. So the Pistons have been searching for a month for the president or the head of basketball operations, and there's still no word, except John Horst, that me and a lot of other people thought was the most likely candidate, that is the general manager for the Milwaukee Bucks, that we would get him because he's from Michigan. Things are going not so great for the Bucks. I thought they might want to move on from him, but they've denied the Pistons the opportunity to interview him. And so we'll see what happens there. We'll see what happens. The Pistons, they also can trade their pick, but now obviously getting the 5th pick, the value of that pick is not as good. I thought maybe we'd get the number 1 pick, and then there would be some value to that. We could trade it. We still could trade down, again, because there's the difference between 5 and 12 can be not that much difference. You got to see who's there, and that's what I would do, and that's what I think a lot of teams are going to do. A lot of teams, they target guys and they fall in love with guys, and so if a team falls in love with a guy, they're going to trade up. I mean, to get the guy if there's a guy that they're in love with that's available at a certain pick. So it's going to be a lot to go. Fascinating to see what happens, and like I said, Caitlin Clark is playing Tuesday night, by the way, on ESPN2, so make sure you check that out. I'm disappointed that it seems like unbelievable that we just get the odds that our Piston fans that we get, but we got to just hang in there and believe, and hopefully we hire a good person for the president basketball operations, and then they get a new general manager. One thing I want to say, there's people that get credit. We hired Troy. Troy was rumored for years to be in line to get a job as general manager, and everybody was always bummed out or saying that he got overlooked and that he should have gotten picked because of what Oklahoma City did in the draft. Well, he wasn't not the person that made the call. We don't know. We don't know behind the scenes how much influence. I'm sure he had. I'm sure he was a positive influence at Oklahoma City. I have no doubt about that. But was he the one that really made the decisions? And he wasn't the final decisions, but maybe he was really good at scouting. I don't know. But we'll see if we get a new general manager and even more a new coach. And again, we got to hold out. Hopefully we can get some free agents. And I talked about that in the last episode. If you didn't listen, go back to my last episode. And I outlined a bunch of players I thought were going to be good. But thank you for listening. We're going to be in on the draft, talking more and more about the draft. Hopefully we get some news soon about the new head of basketball operations. And because we got to, there's all these head coaches that are getting fired. And so all these other teams are going to be competing. Charles Lee, that was one of the candidates for the Piston job when we hired Monty, he just got hired by Charlotte. And so he's a guy I really liked. And, there's still Jaron Collins out there, and there's some other guys that are potentially out there, including J.J. Redick, which a lot of people think he's going to go to the Lakers automatically because him and LeBron do a podcast together. But there's lots of exciting stuff ahead of us, and we'll be here to keep you informed. But thank you again for listening. Happy Mother's Day. Be the reason to say something. Be nice to your mother. Do something special every day for your mothers if you have her. My mother's not longer here. She was the greatest woman I've ever known. And be the reason that somebody feels loved, especially your mother, and go Pistons.